Sonic Universe issue 83. Mercifully, we actually start out the story seeing characters that look good. In the sky above Eggman Land, which for some reason isn't simply referred to as that by the text box because convolution, Eggman tells Metal Sonic that this is a seek and destroy mission. Wait, isn't it supposed to be search and destroy? I guess the phrase is different on Mobius. He says that for some reason he can't get any remote access, so they're going in blind. I hope that's explained. And his text box says that he's aboard the Egg Clam, but at first all I saw was that he was in an Eggmobile as usual, and it kinda looks like there's two sideways parachutes or something to the sides of it for no apparent reason. I remember when Sonic got captured by a submarine shaped like a giant clam in a manga. Even that did a better job at showing a clam. Sonic is known for animal-shaped machines, and this couldn't even do that right. What was the point of this? You'd think that if Eggman wanted a shield, he would have a force field generator. It would use up a lot of energy, but it'd use up some really good materials to make a shield. Eggman complains that there's still no response from the Badnik station here, for some reason. Is it because of Wendy's magic? He says that he knew he should have sent a Horde commander. He says it's next to impossible to keep an even spread of forces across this puzzle of a planet. Then we see some ice around the head of one of the blue robots of his, and he says that his robots have been crystallized, rather than simply frozen in ice. Then he confuses me by saying that the Naugus twins are here. Twins? There's a reason Eggman's saying the Naugus twins, and sadly, it's not because he's using twins figuratively. I hate that Wendy's is his sister instead of mother. I suppose they both have white hair and thus look the same age, but it was common sense to give Ixis a parent or two to show off why he turned out the way he did. And he clearly had the dynamic with her of son and mother, with Ixis not seeming to be the dominant one in charge. They didn't come off like siblings. What's the point of calling them twins if they're fraternal anyways? There's no reason to give him a sibling instead of a parent. It was better to just call them brother and sister so that I'd have known right away. In fact, they should have called Wendy the sister of Ixis in all of her name tag text boxes. At first I wasn't able to focus on him saying twins though, and just went on this train of thought. So, he's already familiar with the Naugus twins in this universe. This is why the reboot failed at being a reboot. It should have started from the beginning, and worked its way ahead, showing us every original news story that it has to offer. Then I wouldn't be confused and off-put at the sudden revelation that he's already familiar with them, which gives me the feeling that someone would have if they missed issues of a comic. But here, because it's the Reboot universe, there's nothing I could have done to prevent this feeling of missing out. It's not always a crime to have a main character turn out to remember the new guy, but because this is the reboot, I know that it's its fault, and that's distracting instead of keeping me invested in experiencing a new continuity. It'd be nice if we were told how he met them, especially if it happened right away. Oh good, we immediately see a flashback to classic Eggman at Egg Storm Chamber, thinking that the Naugus twins are here and he's stuck fighting Sonic again. But I take back that compliment because he still thinks the same sentence as before, so it's not like this is showing his first ever meeting of the Naugus twins. So while this has value too, it's twisted priorities. I obviously needed to see the first meeting first. If wizards like that came face to face with Robotnik, why didn't they kill him right away if they're so violent and probably wanted power? Wizards can so easily be a storybreaker. At least the story has been worth reading so far, involving Sonic characters with good designs. I'll have to force myself through the panels later on though, and now it'll be even harder because the whole issue wasn't like that. Because Eggman knows that he has some other villain to deal with, he thinks that he'll have to release the kidnapped Tails that he didn't kill for some reason to throw Sonic off his trail. This tries to provide an explanation for why Tails was sent back to Sonic at the end of Sonic 2 in the Master System, when that was bullshit. But this just comes off like bad fix-it fanfiction or whatever it's called, because obviously the Naugus twins didn't exist in the games universe. This is a different continuity, so this can't actually explain the game. Plus, it's even more different from the game, because here, we see a glove at the end of an Eggmobile push a button to warp Tails here, when in the game, Eggman was nowhere to be found at that point. So this isn't trying to be canon to the game because it clearly isn't. So I prefer my explanation that a robot put Tails in the teleporter to return to Sonic. Maybe it was a glitch because he wanted to spite Eggman. Then electricity destroys his Eggmobile and sends him falling out of it as everything's silhouetted in rush dark for so long that I want to point it out. Then Eggman gets trapped in ice and he's told he has a lot to answer for. And then they immediately killed him. No, that makes sense of people as evil as them. I hope there's a very good explanation for why he survived this. I forgot, Ixis is called Wally in the reboot to spite Sadie M fans. He's dressed like a stereotypical witch, despite being a male wizard. How do you get that wrong? But at least this is different and therefore interesting. It makes sense that he'd have Wendy Witchcart be Ixis' relative because she's a female sorceress who looked weird in the game. Of course, the game made obvious that she's still supposed to be a human and not a Mobian bat like Ixis because she had normal ears. But she also had a huge nose. Her having pointy ears helps justify her being related to a bat like Ixis. And it's a different universe from the games anyways. I love that she has a metal claw in her hand because it matches Ixis. Maybe it's genetic in the Reboot universe. And since when do you see that on a female witch with a stereotypical outfit? But still, what are the limits to their powers? I assume they can just do elemental stuff. But Ixis and Sadie M was never limited to that. He brainwashed and created a portal right away. If they aren't limited that much, well, the fact that Wendy has a claw hand now has brought my attention to a plot hole with Ixis too. Why do they put up with having a debilitating hand like this instead of magicking it away and fixing it right away? That's not relatable at all. I can only assume they think it's menacing. But shouldn't they be confident enough to know that they're already menacing enough? They're called Crystal Masters. That's minerals, so earth magic. It's just confusing that they're called Crystal Masters in particular, when this just looks like ice to me. And I think they're masters at every spell they do. Calling them a master at any particular type of spell just made it confusing that they had powers beyond it, since it seemed intuitive to restrict and balance them at that point. Suddenly, it turns out that Wendy giggles and thinks Eggman is handsome. I thought she was a bat in the Reboot universe. So, human and Mobian interspecies romance is a thing in the Reboot universe. Because either way, she's not a human. That's not too far away from Elise loving Sonic. But at least here, I can't say he would have written that in 06, because rather than being portrayed unironically as a sympathetic character, this is a freaky looking witch who's being portrayed as a villain. Which tries to make up for it Tan and nitpicky enough to have a huge problem with the race difference when there are so many worse problems in Sonic stories. She looks mostly like a human. I was just thinking that this is interesting. It develops on her character a bit because she wants a boyfriend. But how does she not already know what Eggman looks like? I guess this is the first time she's ever been to Mobius from the Zone of Silence. Ixis tells Wendy to stop calling him Wally, so she's a pretty mean person to still keep calling him that by that point. Having even Ixis hate the new name just makes me really wonder why he thought it was good enough to keep using. Like he knew it sucked. I guess he thought it was such a hilarious joke that it was worth it, when he could have used it on anyone but someone with an established first name already. He fortunately tells her to keep her priorities straight because they're here for revenge against Eggman and Sonic. Oh right, revenge because Eggman trapped him in the Zone of Silence, right. He should have said that. He sure is lonely to stick around her when he clearly doesn't need her help. But I actually like that because it develops on his character as someone who can have a family attachment. Before this point, I never imagined him to want to be around his family. I always assumed he was a bad guy because he was the type to grow bitter from parental abuse. Sonic shows up behind Ixis, and Wendy is apparently able to react at the speed of sound or faster because she freezes Sonic in ice in mid-run when he just showed up here. Okay, so this looks like the point where the story's gonna break apart. It's so obvious that realistically, if they want revenge on both of them, because apparently Ixis has prior history with Sonic at this point for no explained reason. My point is, they'd be dead by now. I'm wondering why they were too stupid to just immediately freeze them inside and out, like Ixis did to M and Archie Sonic. So are they planning on keeping them alive for their whole lives to gloat at them and torture them? Their sadism will be their downfall then. Morons. At least that's kind of understandable idiocy. And they're all powerful wizards. How are they ever supposed to anticipate that these two will get out of the situation? I don't see how they could. Even any rescuer of theirs should just be frozen too. He'd have to miraculously show up when they're not being guarded by a wizard. I'm just waiting for Sonic to vibrate at sonic speed to break free of the ice with friction, even though the ice should be holding that part of his body completely still. It turns out that Tails saw what happened to Sonic, and he says quietly that he'll save him somehow, as Sonic and Eggman are levitated behind them. But look at Ixis' ears. Shouldn't his hearing be good enough to hear Tails, even if he's all the way across the room? For normal hearing, you'd only be able to pick up a few words here and there. What? Why the hell did it cut back to the present at a time like this? What was he thinking? We're never gonna see how Tails saves Sonic. I can only give this story any benefit of the doubt by hoping that the rest of the story will be explained later. If so, then this is just a cheap marketing ploy. It means you're forced to keep reading through the inferior subplot to eventually see all the plot you wanted to see when you first saw them. Eggman thinks that Walter can be a bother. Is it Wally or Walter? Is Wally short for that? Okay, then his first name should have been established in the reboot as Walter, and he wouldn't be called Wally until this point. It made way more sense for someone related to him to know to call him that than Nicole. Walter is at least a kind of acceptable name, but even then, it's too modern and mundane for a medieval wizard. It'd actually be better if you just called him Naugus. Eggman thinks that he thought he was at least on working terms with Wendy since then. Why? She just kidnapped... Oh, because she likes him? Then why isn't she working for him now? Wouldn't he have had her imprisoned again in the Zone of Silence, explaining where she was all this time? They're not showing any special stages there, they're using it just like that place. So it's a Zone of Silence. He wonders why they're challenging him here and now. He tells Metal Sonic the plan to get to the Central Collector quickly and quietly. Once he'll regain control of the facilities, he can look into restoring the Badniks here. He tells Metal Sonic to get rid of some of the ice to make him an access point as he plugs something in. He complains that it was Snively who convinced him to switch to Wi-Fi because it's more convenient than Hardline, and he's mad that the crystals are blocking any signals, and thinks that Wi-Fi sucks because of it. First of all, Wi-Fi would be more advanced than what was done before if Snively wanted to change. And second, even in real life, they've invented a superior emerging technology to Wi-Fi. I think it's called Li-Fi. So on two different levels, it makes no sense that someone who's been making robots that are 100 years more advanced than ours would have only recently changed to Wi-Fi and been resistant to it even now, instead of making something better than it. Then he wonders what happened to Snively. I guess for once a character was smart, because Snively's been hiding a gun and no one's announced his new location where he could hear it. It's like he's been put in the witness protection program. Eggman says that the energy absorption is nearly complete, but then he says he'll have it all in days. Then he's asked if he can put himself back together, and the Witchcarters show up. I immediately hated the so-called wolf's design, and the rabbit reminded me too much of Rouge the Bat with their blue eyeshadow and white color scheme. But on the bright side, only Folk Wolf has a horrendous DeviantArt design. Behringer looked like an actual bear, and Carrottail looks like an actual rabbit. Anthropomorphized, obviously. Also, why criticize if Eggman swore in a kids' comic? It's hard to believe that the main villain and tyrant of the world would say phooey. He's not afraid of censorship. I like that he immediately insults these guys by saying that Tails took them out before he stepped out of Sonic's shadow. They deserve that. They're probably just one-dimensional monsters. And the wolf looks terrible. Also, I'm guessing that even though he told Metal Sonic to take them out, he's not going to immediately kill them by spin dashing through them. Granted, that would be bad writing because it'd be a waste of villains right away and it'd be too dark to look at. But that is exactly why they should have never been faced with Metal Sonic. I bet he won't kill them, and Eggman will be magically fine with that instead of dismantling him for obviously asserting free will and a conscience. Or maybe Eggman wants them alive to be roboticized, but take them out could be interpreted either way. Then the bear guy is somehow fast enough to attack Metal Sonic and slam him into the ground after Metal Sonic somehow gave him the time to say stuff first when he was ordered to attack him. So somehow Metal Sonic was wimpified in favor of these nobodies. That wouldn't happen. They'd all be sent to the hospital at least. I guess this is where the story starts to get stupid, because already the fight scene is ruined. Metal Sonic is way faster than that, and making him look like an idiot like this is just as bad as AOSCH making Robotnik cry in front of Sonic in the first episode. Eggman asks what just happened. If even the writer knows this would never happen, why do you think we'd want to see it? The wolf juggles some pink energy balls and throws them near Eggman. Okay, so I guess they're being powered up by Dark Guy energy. That better specifically explain why he was so much faster than Metal Sonic. Because I don't think the Dark Gaia monsters are faster than Sonic. Because I don't see how that was any better than Metal Sonic being repeatedly trashed in Archie. And that doesn't justify Metal Sonic not interrupting Behringer with an attack when he was talking. You'd think he'd successfully hit Eggman with one of those energy balls. But no. So he sadly makes it to his Eggmobile under fire. Yep, Eggman figures out what happened. Eggman starts firing lasers at the wolf, but sadly he doesn't accurately shoot him and kill him or injure him. Too bad. Behringer's attacks keep being dodged by Metal Sonic. Wait, so, well I guess it's because Metal Sonic decided to start moving first. He's just as fast as Metal Sonic now. Not faster, apparently. Metal Sonic's spin dash makes him fall over on his back, which makes me wonder how he didn't spin dash straight through his feet at that point. It's not like he's Sonic, who's got a conscience. Eggman would approve of him not holding back, and should scold him for not doing his best. Some ice hits the side of the Eggmobile, and Wendy says that she'll take care of Eggman, who she still calls handsome. So why would you want to kill him? I like that she's called Granny Witchcart. Not only does the word Granny really suit her, but her last name's supposed to be Witchcart. Naugus is a slightly more realistic last name though. Witchcart is a name consisting of two English words. It could make sense as just a title for it. But the confusing thing is, it looks like Ixis is there with her. When the last time I saw him, he lost his powers and was running out of Mobotropolis like a coward. So how'd he reunite with her, and why is she even bothering with him? I would prefer if this was Ixis' father instead. At least that would justify the new clothes. I have a question. If she's a witch, why doesn't she brainwash Eggman into falling in love with her? I'm sure she'd have a love potion somewhere. I guess love is too complicated a thing to rewrite into a person's brain with magic. But it's hard for me to believe that. Couldn't she just think about the idea of Eggman being nice to her and thinking he loves her, and then make it happen? Brainwashing spells are common in fantasy. Why would they be possible for everything else except love? A witch could rewrite someone's brain so that they know how to drive a stick, and can change someone's mind so that they decide they are taking questions today. But can't do this even if they're a very powerful witch. In a world where there is no witches' council making some spells impossible for others. Well, maybe there is one in the Zone of Silence she's from. You'd think since she's a witch who's in love with Eggman, her brainwashing Eggman to be her devoted husband would be a more natural way for the story to progress. And I'd like to see him in that role for a change of pace at least for a few stories. I'm already ecstatic that Wendy took over his base. Of course, it'd be lame if they only got it for 4 issues. That's less than the Iron Queen. This just reminded me of Archie, where we got a break from boring Eggman and got to focus on Ixis as the main villain. And there were even a few minor villains along the way. That break from Eggman is something the Archie comic really did right, and it'll never happen again. Eggman says to forget being quiet and tells Metal Sonic to attack. Only one thing could happen after this. Metal Sonic would charge them at Sonic speed right after Eggman was done talking, and since he can move and react at Sonic speed, there's no reason any of them should be able to react first, so they shouldn't be able to dodge or attack him. If that does happen, it should be outright explained that Dark Guy's energy made them faster than him. I'm only suspecting that of Behringer right now, and he might have just gotten lucky. More importantly, I'm wondering why the whole time Eggman was saying blast it all, Wendy didn't just interrupt him with a freezing spell to cover his entire Eggmobile in ice and keep him from even talking. I don't understand why the ice would be on the clamshell and not the Eggmobile itself. So really, Wendy should immediately win here because Metal Sonic's idiotically doing nothing, while Eggman's giving him a common sense order he was already carrying out. And somehow everyone was just politely letting him talk and not trying to attack him that whole time. Instead, what happens next is that Eggman also has the time to tell him to ignore Ixis, as he has to tell him he's been powerless since he fired the Genesis Wave. He tells him that Wendy is the primary target. He should have just told him attack Wendy in the previous panel. That's 2 words, which is a small enough time that it would be plausible that nobody attacked them in all that time of him talking. Instead of her immediately freezing his entire Eggmobile and Metal Sonic with a snap of the fingers, Wendy just flies away and laughs and tells them to come get her, instead of being scared of Metal Sonic spin dashing through her, which is logically the thing he'd do the second he was given the chance to attack. Wow. He sucks at writing fight scenes. It's sad that he can't even make Wendy Witchcart take full advantage of her magical powers, when he knows she has them. Ixis says that Eggman ignores him at his own peril. First off, I was suspecting that he might not be powerless anymore because Wendy's bothering to let him be around her, and he came out of the Zone of Silence, so the Special Zone's magic could have powered him back up. Also, he could have not said this and wasted a panel and precious time warning him of his impending attack. Eggman's Eggmobile is weighed down and crashes into the ground because it gets frozen on the other side by Ixis. Why isn't all of it frozen by now, and why is he like, stop getting new abilities, when Ice Power is clearly not a new ability for Ixis? Eggman then notices that Ixis has Master Emerald shards, so he found them, and then he somehow got back into the Zone of Silence. I guess he literally went into the Special Zone by getting 50 rings. Otherwise, how did he reunite with Wendy? It came off as if the writer forgot that Ixis wasn't sealed in the Zone of Silence last time he saw him. He couldn't have found them in the Special Zone, that'd be stupid. He says that he'll leave Eggman in just as many pieces, but because he wasted time talking instead of acting, Metal Sonic had the time to protect Eggman with a black shield. Ironically, Sonic would protect Eggman here too, because he's stupid enough to want to preserve his life. So Metal Sonic isn't actually being evil here, just misguided. Logically, Ixis and Wendy would have killed Eggman here. But instead, Ixis was slow as a snail for no reason because he insisted on making dramatic speeches first. Then there's a ridiculous looking panel where I'm wondering how Ixis has the time to cowardly call for help when Metal Sonic has been flying towards him the whole time at Sonic speed. First off, he would have just frozen Metal Sonic like he did to M. I can't believe he's being portrayed as a coward again! Second, I thought Metal was really close to him last panel, so he really shouldn't have not interrupted him and spin dashed through him. And this is why Metal Sonic wasn't meant to be an antagonist against anyone not as fast as him. He was originally conceived as a character to fight Sonic, not anyone else. We've got the problem where the action scene has the stakes too high, being between murderous villains. And so logic has to fall apart to somehow force all of them to survive because it's a kids' series. At that point, the writer wrote himself into a corner. It was smart of Ixis to want to kill Eggman, but it brings up the question of how Eggman's surviving if the goal of everyone is to do that, when he could have just continued wanting to imprison him and keep him alive to gloat at him. Wendy freezes Metal Sonic. So if that could happen, what took so long? Why didn't Ixis do that himself? We could have saved a panel, a lot of panels. And then they would look smart and competent instead of Ixis frustrating me in an already bad action scene. Also, speaking of bad, how is it that his arm isn't frozen? I guess you sent an ice beam at him and it only freezes what it hits. Because magic that doesn't follow the laws of physics is restrained to a beam. But you'd think she'd be able to imagine all of him frozen just fine. Wendy giggles at the look on Ixis' face. Behringer runs towards Metal, threatening to smash him, but him trailing off immediately gives away the twist that things won't be that simple. So of course he gets prevented from destroying Metal Sonic. Okay, Ixis is kinda smart here by thinking he might have a use for Metal Sonic himself. He's not wasting a robot that way, but he's not a programmer. Unless he covers him in green crystal and controls the crystal again, he can't control him. Though he could kidnap a programmer and force him to reprogram Metal Sonic to work for him. Otherwise, the second he's not around to control the crystallized robot, like when he's asleep, well, I guess he'd be unable to move at all because he'd be surrounded by crystal. Never mind, I guess that works. I like that Baranjar's a personality. He's hot-tempered. The wolf's personality is that he's insane. They at least try to make them have strong personalities. Ixis wants to kill Eggman, and confusingly, Wendy does too, even though she's in love with him. I don't get it. And then Ixis looks like such an idiot that I can't take him seriously at all, because he wastes time asking if Eggman has any last words, instead of taking the last things he said before as last words and killing him right away. He looks so stupid in this scene, I bet he dropped out of grade school. What the hell? This is why they should have been written to just want to capture and torture him, because now they're not allowed to do anything successfully, or they'd end the series. Even though I don't see how Eggman's death or capture has to do that. The reboot would clearly be better off without Eggman, and we could see the witches in charge for a change. It's a different continuity, it doesn't have to be Eggman. I already prefer them with their magical powers. So Eggman uses his Eggmobile, leaving an explosion behind him, threatening them. What did they think would happen when they threatened him in his Eggmobile? Ixis is lucky that he doesn't get injured from the burn or get deafened from the explosion. And it's not like we're seeing him control the fire to protect himself. So he gets to fly away, and then he thinks that it was sloppy of him to not withdraw Metal Sonic the second he saw the crystallized badniks. Okay, but I can't blame him for assuming that someone as fast as Metal Sonic would have been able to kill off all of his enemies easily. Logically, he made the right decision, and he should have won. Sonic said in Fleetweed that he can attack a wizard faster than he can cast a spell. So the same should apply to Metal Sonic. Eggman says that he's going to need a strike force. One with enough organic material to resist the twins' powers. So this is when the story arc's going to turn to shitty fanfiction. This is where all the bad OCs are going to come in, who have no charm-like ability at all. Having an overemphasis on bad OCs is one of the worst, most memorable taboos of fanfiction. If I was reading one that had even one OC as a main character, I would immediately consider not reading the rest of it. But a dozen OCs? That's like an exaggeration of bad Sonic fanfiction. But at least in that, aren't the OCs usually good guys? And competent? That's always better than unlikable bad guys the heroes always win against that you want destroyed the whole time. How am I expected to root for Eggman? None of these villains are people you should root for. But that's the inherent problem with having an arc like this. But as a result to this, it invalidates the whole appeal of the story from now on because you get the 8 deadly words. I don't care what happens to any of these characters. Well, I care about Metal Sonic, but that's because he's cool. Other than that, he's such an easy catalyst for bad writing because he's an overpowered villain. So he's actually not a good character writing-wise, and the reboot proved it. Seems like his every appearance has been badly written. My point is, why was I expected to care about who was in charge of Eggman's base at this point? Which would give me motivation to read the whole arc when I'm tempted to stop reading here. It doesn't matter either way which one-dimensional monster is in charge of one base, when Eggman's sub-bosses still rule most of the world. And we don't know how exactly Wendy would want to run the world differently. Well, if these witches get faced with Bunny or Emerald, they could crystallize and control them. But we weren't told that, and they're immediately threatening the heroes, which I'd obviously rather see than see Eggman go to a place where he can tell Orbot to get every sub-boss online for him to assemble a strike team. Cubot should have known it went poorly for Eggman because he was refusing to talk about it. Not for some shameful padding the writer should have known better than to waste our time with. We clearly didn't need to see him hiring every single sub-boss individually. I actually started skipping ahead and skipped to what ended up being the end of the issue. And shockingly, that was the rest of the story. So now I gotta go back. Why did he show us a repeat of the panels where the bird character was being hired by him? We saw the basic scene before. The hideous looking yellow thing, Thunderbolt, is happy to help Eggman, and Eggman says that at least one of his sub-bosses has a proper attitude for helping him. Why? I don't understand. If he had a roboticizer to roboticize Sonic and Worlds Unite, why hasn't he roboticized all these sub-bosses by now and made them not look as horrendous anymore? And it'd be stupid of Eggman to need Sigma's technology to do his iconic technology. Well, since the green cyborg with black eyes looks noticeably bad from it, maybe them being roboticized would make them look even worse because it just ruined their eye design. Then maybe their entire design should have been changed from the ground up in the alpha phase if they're that irredeemably amateurish. Eggman tells the leader of the Grand Cuckoo Army to come help as well, even though supposedly he's not one of his regular conscripts. And yet he's called Egg Boss of the Skies. So don't confuse me. It's always been lame that in the comics, his army is Eggman's army, when the whole appeal of them in Tails' Adventure was that they were working independently from Eggman. This army is not going to be nearly as interesting as Reboot. We're not going to see, like, a whole arc dedicated to their home. I like that he told them to shake a tail feather since they're birds, and it reminds us that Eggman is a race against Mobians, a special kind of evil. Then we see Speedy somehow being surprised that he's going to work for Eggman, and he tells Speedy that one day they'll teach Eggman who owns the sky. Yeah, it's Eggman because he has an Eggmobile and can build egg carriers and has a death egg. He had a whole bunch of egg carriers in Sonic Heroes. Are you serious? That's what Acklet looks like? I was picturing a white robotic octopus. Like Octobot. I would have much rather seen him than a shitty fanfiction OC. Hopefully you get the point by now, but every time I see these awful character designs, I get so mad that I want to get revenge by calling them out on it. But no matter how much I do that, it doesn't get any easier. What's the point of saying that this character is based on this species if they clearly don't look anything like it? It'd actually be better to have them look like the real species but with cartoon eyes at that point. I don't care about any of the characters that look like garbage when they already are garbage people. So anytime it's not necessary for the overall plot, I'm skipping them. I don't care about their panels, they shouldn't even exist in the comic. Lord Hood tells Eggman that he's more of a leader than a combatant and says that he could send someone else. Eggman says that he gave him legs, and tells him to go to the nearest shuttle. Why is he called Urish instead of Avalonian or something? Huh, Commanding Storm comes back from the pre-boot. She actually looks really cool now. Prettier even. Maybe it's because she has purple eyeshadow as well as black eyes. And the black eyes match her black hair, and contrast well with her orange fur. Still though, if the writer knew that this was getting repetitive to the point where he had Eggman say it, that should have been an immediate sign that he should be filling up comic space with something worthwhile instead of this. This issue was by Ian Flynn, and until the bad action scene started, it was actually surprisingly great. I like that it focused on Eggman and Metal Sonic and not horrible looking characters instead. Eggman finds out Wendy, Witchcart, and Ixis took over his base. Then there's a flashback where Eggman was captured in ice along with Sonic, but it's implied Tails plans on rescuing him. But I wish we just saw the story continue from that on instead. Metal Sonic really broke the story here, so he should have been too busy to be here. It's so obvious a robot that fast would have spin-dashed through every enemy in his way, or he could have just injured them because censorship. But instead, everyone was an idiot, and so somehow he was frozen and captured, and Eggman miraculously had the chance to fly away, leaving an explosion behind. Since I doubt that explosion injured Ixis, because that makes sense, I guess there's also a plot hole of how is he able to escape instead of his Eggmobile getting crystallized or frozen or blown out of the air by wind. Wouldn't they crystallize and take control of his Eggmobile? It was cool that Wendy powered up her henchman with dark eye energy, and it's interesting that she loves Eggman, but then why was she happily going along with the plan to kill him if she thinks he's handsome? Why keep bringing that up if it won't matter? And then shockingly, the entire rest of the story is wasted on Eggman hiring all of his sub-bosses individually. They're all basically the same kind of character, where they're power-greedy people working for Eggman. I have a question. Why can't he just call them all at once and talk to them all at the same time? Couldn't he do that at the start of Worlds Collide? He was in the middle of addressing multiple sub-bosses when suddenly Wily was contacted instead for no reason. The fact that he's not capable of doing that anymore means that he's actually gotten dumber. The story was forced because Metal Sonic was there instead of Busy. Or better yet, he should have been in the process of being repaired at this point, which could have been justified by the monster from earlier attacking him. Even without Metal Sonic, Eggman obviously wouldn't have survived being in front of a bunch of witches if they want to kill him now and not just capture and gloat at him. But at least the story before that point was actually worthwhile. Too bad the arc's probably gonna take a nosedive from this point, because now it's brought in all the sub-bosses. When Archie's sub-bosses all looked way better than them. I want Crockbot and Octobot back, not OCs from fanfiction.net. If I find a scene with the bad-looking ones unnecessary to understand the whole plot, I want to just skip it entirely. But then I won't be able to blast it if it has a plot hole. But knowing this writer, I'm guessing the whole arc's going to be bad action scenes. Or at least bad dialogue that I have no reason to want to talk about because it's really obvious that it sucks, so I don't need to point it out. I mean really, how could the Egg Bosses possibly succeed against witches and their magically empowered henchmen? It's so brutally obvious that these guys don't have a chance. If any tried to face the witches, they should logically just get annihilated.